Hello, everyone. Long time no see. Welcome back to the Let's Talk pod. No, shit. Oh my god. Why do I not know the name of my own podcast? This happened last time. Okay, hold on. Let me try this again. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Long time no see. Welcome to Let's Talk, a Fangirls podcast with your host, Katie Gleason, aka Starks Nova. Nailed it. You might be thinking, wow, when she said she wasn't sure how often she was going to upload, boy, did she mean it. Yeah, it's been about like 2 months, I think, since my first episode. And surely I must be talking about something super relevant, right? Like, the new Superman movie, the restart of the DCU, maybe some of the most recent Marvel projects, Ironheart, which I had been talking about for years. Surely I'm here talking about something relevant and timely like that. If you were thinking that, you'd be wrong. Welcome to today's episode, which is about the TV show Once Upon a Time. Once Upon a Time is my favorite show to ever exist. It is a huge part of my life. It has been for over a decade. There's no rhyme or reason to me doing this episode other than I really want to talk about Once Upon a Time. And I'm very excited to get started. So without further ado, let's talk about it. Thank you so much for all the love on episode 1. This is purely just, self-indulgent passion project thing of mine where I get to rant about the things that I love. But I received a lot of really, really sweet messages after the first episode that y'all enjoyed it and enjoyed hearing what I have to say. People actually listened to the whole thing. Like, this is crazy. So thank you so much. It means a lot to me, especially as someone, which I'm actually going to talk about in this episode, who for a long time was kind of afraid to talk about the things that I loved so much and for so long and so proudly, out of fear of being annoying or too much or whatever. So the fact that people actually want to hear what I have to say means a lot to me. So yeah, let's get started with this week's episode. This week, please, as if I upload this weekly, that's crazy. With today's episode, I'm going to start by just kind of talking about how I got into Once Upon a Time in the first place. And out of all of the fandoms I'm going to talk about on this podcast, other than Disney, because Disney has been like a lifelong love, I think this is the fandom I've been in the longest. And I'm going to tell the story because I think it's funny. Let's rewind to 5th grade Katie. And I'm sitting in the cafeteria at lunch. I actually remember this very vividly. I feel like this is one of those, like, these moments that if it goes one way or the other will create an entirely new timeline. Like, that's how important this moment was. So I'm in the cafeteria and my friends are all talking about this show called Once Upon a Time, and I had never heard of it. And I'm like, ooh, Once Upon a Time, that sounds like it's about fairy tales. What's that? And this girl turns to me and she goes, Katie, I don't think you'd like it. Which was very valid, actually. Because, we were about, how old are 5th graders? 11-ish? 10, 11? And up until now, we had only ever really watched things on Disney Channel and Nickelodeon and things that were kind of meant exclusively for kids. Now, Once Upon a Time, I know the creators were very proud of the fact that it could be enjoyed by the whole family. Like, it's not like it wasn't okay for kids to be watching it, but it wasn't exclusively targeted towards kids. And I guess, some kids were starting to watch PG-13 movies and things like that. And I was very much one of the ones who was not at all going into that territory of things that weren't made just for kids, because it was scary. And people, I didn't want to watch anything where people were fighting or where there was any sort of violence or that was dark, because it freaked me out. And I have always been known to be a very anxious person. So her saying I wouldn't like it, honestly, made a lot of sense. And I know, Once Upon a Time is not that violent, but when you're a kid who's only ever watched, Victorious and, Zack and Cody, someone ripping out someone else's heart is a lot. But, everyone was talking about it, everyone was really excited about it, and also, the boy I had a crush on at the time liked it. So, I watched it. Well, no, I didn't watch it right away. I had to wait until season 4 aired. So this was pre-streaming. This was back in the olden days when Netflix was a DVD service and streaming didn't exist, and the only way to watch things that weren't happening live was either recording it on your DVR or renting a DVD. If there is anyone here who was like not alive during this era, you are too young to be on the internet. Actually, no, please keep listening. I need the views. But that is insane to me. So yeah, I waited until season 4 aired. And this was all, this was also when they added Anna and Elsa. For anyone who does. Actually, I'm very curious. Comment if you've seen this show and how much of it you have seen. Because I'm very curious if there's anyone listening to this who has not seen the show or who has not seen all of the show. Spoiler warning ahead, by the way, if you have not seen all of it. But season 4 is when they brought in Anna and Elsa from Frozen and made them, like, characters in the show. So this was also, I was an elementary schooler during the Frozen hype. Of course I want to watch Anna and Elsa on a new show, or, like, on a show that's new to me. So I hadn't seen seasons 1, 2, and 3, but right before season 4, I think they did this because they knew they were going to be getting a bunch of new viewers with Frozen. They did an hour-long special recapping the first 3 seasons of the show. So I watched that, and then I watched season 4, episode 1. And I immediately loved it. Like, I know I said this last time about watching Iron Man, but genuinely, there have been only a few times in my life where I can remember, like, feeling a physical shift in me watching a piece of media, and Iron Man was one, Once Upon a Time was one of the others. And it might just be because, like I said, this is my first time watching anything that was, like, not exclusively made for kids, so it's a very different vibe. It might have just been, like, my first time experiencing a different type of media, but I do really remember something in me kind of shifting when I watched it for the first time. And then I watched next week. It was on Sundays. Oh my God, Once Upon a Time Sundays, I used to look forward to every single week. I would not plan anything on Sunday nights. After a little while of watching the show, I would make hot cocoa with cinnamon and popcorn every week in my Captain Hook mug and my Captain Hook blanket and watch on Sunday nights. And I miss this so much. But, so I watched the next few weeks, and then I really wanted to start from the beginning. I really wanted to watch seasons 1, 2, and 3. So what we had to do is go to our public library and rent the DVDs. And you could only rent 2 DVDs at a time, and my parents were like, okay, one is for you, one is for your brother. So I could only rent 1 DVD at a time. It was about 1 per week, I think, for me. And there were only 5 or 6 episodes per DVD. And of course I wouldn't pace myself. I would just watch all of the episodes the day I get the DVD and then sit around and wait for a week, waiting for the next stuff, not even able to watch the DVD bonus features because the bloopers would spoil the rest of the season. Oh my God, it was rough. Y'all, I'm not gonna lie to you. But yeah, I started from the beginning. My mom watched it with me. And it very, very quickly became what is still to this day one of the strongest hyperfixations of my entire life. Not to get too sappy, but this show means a lot to me. And some important context. Around the time I first started watching Once Upon a Time was also when my first ever time experiencing severe depression. I'm diagnosed with severe depression, but this was my first time experiencing those symptoms. And Once Upon a Time very quickly became a much needed source of hope and belief and escape. And at its core, the whole show is about believing in the possibility of a happy ending. And that's something I really needed. Like, I was Henry, and the show of Once Upon a Time was my storybook. And I think not only that, but I didn't know I was neurodivergent at the time. I didn't know that until very recently. And so I didn't know what a hyperfixation was. And, I was at that age of, like, kids starting to think that they're not kids anymore, if that makes sense. And when you're a kid, it's very normal to be very obsessed with things, and everyone has their favorite character on their lunchbox and on their t-shirts. And then suddenly when you start to think that you're older and you're cooler and you're becoming an adult, that became less normal and less cool. And I don't remember if I talked about this last episode or not. I don't think I did, but I was suddenly at this age where everyone around me was no longer really obsessed with things anymore, and I still was. And here I am experiencing the most intense hyperfixation of my life. No idea what a hyperfixation is, or like I can't put a name to it. I don't understand why I'm feeling something so strongly and everyone else around me doesn't seem to be. And then also, because I don't know how to handle it, I am talking about this show 24/7 to anyone who will listen, whether or not they want to be listening. And, people found that annoying and weird. And it started to just kind of become this spiral of feeling so weird and alone and different, and then needing this hyperfixation to cope with that. It was a very intense obsession and hyperfixation, and one that I am now learning is okay. And I mean, with that said, maybe I don't need to talk about Once Upon a Time to anyone ever. Maybe I should sometimes also be like, how's your day? Like, there is a balance. But that also doesn't mean that I should be ashamed of the things that I enjoy, or afraid to talk about things that I love because I think people will think it's weird. There's a time and place, sure, but again, that's part of why something like this podcast means a lot to me, or my platform means a lot to me, because I can be a nerd about the things that I love, and not only is it not weird, it's embraced and it's cool. And that's really cool. Not to get too sappy too quickly, but this show means a lot to me. In fact, so my favorite character is Emma. Emma has been my role model since I first started watching the show, which I was 11 turning 12. I'm now 22, so it's been a little over a decade. And mind you, like, the hyperfixation comes and goes. Like, this show will always be a huge part of my life, but it's not always, like, my main focus. But then the second anyone mentions it, or I hear something that reminds me of it, I'm back. And I'm back in middle school, and I'm suddenly like, hey, do you want to hear the lore? And everyone's like, no. And I'm like, well, here's my drawn-out family tree that I did. I did make the complete family tree, by the way. It took me hours. But anyways, so Emma means a lot to me. I have a tattoo for Emma. I have a swan on the back of my shoulder. And last year, I was finally able to meet Jennifer Morrison, who plays Emma, which was really, really special. My mom cried when I met Jennifer Morrison. I mean, I cried, but my mom cried. And like it's been just a huge part of who I am for a very long time. And we had a wonderful conversation. She's so sweet. And it was so amazing getting to not only meet her, but, like, actually talk with her, like, and have a genuine conversation. We talked about the acting industry. She gave me advice for the acting industry. I told her, I was able to thank her for how much Once has helped me and how big of a part of my life that Emma Swan has been, which was really, really special. And I also, I gave her a friendship bracelet, and I'm wearing mine right now, and I have no idea if she kept hers. She did put it on right when I gave it to her. They both say Swan, and they're red, and I wear mine all the time. But, yeah. I feel like I got to talk about the content of the actual show now, but for context, this show just means so much to me, and it's even if it's not like the number one show I'm watching at the moment or whatever, it will always have a very special place in my heart and a very special place in my life. I think the best way to go about talking about, like, the actual contents of the show, because, okay, if you haven't seen it, this show is batshit crazy. This show is ridiculous. Imagine a soap opera, but it's fairy tale characters and characters from famous literature and Disney characters, and all of them are related and or having sex, and you don't see the sex. Is there a sex scene in Once Upon a Time? There are close sex scenes. I think the closest we ever got was when Snow and Charming were under the covers, but we never saw anything. But they're all having weird romantic relationships with each other, and it's twisted and weird and wonderful, and 7 seasons of pure madness. I think the best way to go about even beginning to tackle this, I'm getting comfy, I'm like sitting back, is let's rank the seasons. I think that's the best way to do this. And I'm going to start with my favorite and then go to my least favorite. And as I talk about the seasons, like as I rank a season, I'm going to talk about it, talk about what I like, what I didn't like. I don't have much of a... I took some notes on what I could talk about, but if I try to get through that whole list, this is going to be a very long episode. This will probably be the first of many times I talk about Once Upon a Time on here. I also... Okay, there have been 2 reasons I procrastinated this episode. Number 1 is I lost my voice when I went to film it, so that didn't happen. And number 2 is because I get so passionate talking about this show that it is genuinely draining. And I have had to, like, hype myself up enough to have the energy to do this. Because, like, one of the things I want to talk about is Emma Swan, and I want to talk about some opinions I've heard about Emma Swan that I very much disagree with. And I'm already, like, my heart rate is already increasing. Just saying those words. I need to calm down. Like, if you think I'm passionate about Marvel, this has been many more years in the making. I am so protective over this damn show. Like, I will shit on it so much, but the second anyone else says anything bad about it, pitchforks and torches. Like, I love this show so dearly. So anyways, let's rank the seasons. I think the best way to do this is best to worst, in my calm, objective opinion. And yeah. Let's jump right in with what I believe is the best season of Once Upon a Time. Season 3. As a refresher, Season 3A. This is the first season that they did it, breaking it into multiple parts, which is part of the reason that I think it is the best. Season 3A is Neverland, Peter Pan, Operation Save Henry. Henry's the heart of the truest believer. They have to go get him from Neverland. Pan is the villain. It's so cool. And then Season 3B is Oz, Zelena, Wicked Witch, and we get the finale, which is my favorite episodes of the entire series, which is the Season 3 finale where they go back in time, they do a Back to the Future moment, they accidentally stop Snow and Charming from meeting. And it is... Season 3 is absolute peak Once Upon a Time. Number 1, I think the reason... So, Season 1 is incredible, but it's very hard to replicate what Season 1 did, because they had this really great parallel to the real world and the Enchanted Forest before the curse was broken. Once the curse got broken, I don't even know if they knew they would get renewed for a second season, but I feel like they were kind of like, oh shit, where do we go from here? Which is incredibly valid. They wrote this story very specifically to fit the structure of Season 1, but then the curse broke, and they kind of could do anything from there. And because Season 2 didn't have like a 2-part structure, they kind of, and I guess I could talk about this more when I talk about Season 2, but it kind of felt drawn out. There was not a ton happening because they picked one villain for the entire season. Season 3 did what I think is really brilliant, and they cut it into 11 episode chunks. So there was Season 3A and Season 3B. And I think it actually did the show a great service because I think the pacing just worked so much better. And I also think it helped. I think they kind of thrived within that structure. And instead of having one villain be too drawn out, you could have this really powerful villain, but it could still be really high stakes and it could still move very quickly. But it wasn't too quickly either. I think the absolute best era of this show is Season 3A. The Neverland stuff is so brilliant. And I am a lifelong Peter Pan fan. I'm going to be getting a Peter Pan tattoo hopefully this summer. I don't know. I need to save my money. But I love Peter Pan. I adore Peter Pan. I think like dark and twisted versions of Peter Pan I think just dark and twisted versions of fairy tales in general is like the coolest thing ever. That's probably why I love this show so much. But Peter Pan specifically, there's something about it that I think just has, it just is such a perfect opportunity to kind of twist it. It's just such a great like outlet for creativity, I think. It's also just an amazing story to begin with, but the way they did Peter Pan, first of all, I think he's the best villain in the show. I think he has such a way of being menacing but also enticing, so it's understanding why it works that he's so manipulative. I think he's one of the villains that is able to hit all of our main characters very close to home because he's so smart about all of the games he's playing, all of the tricks he's playing. They're all so personal that every single obstacle they face forces the main characters to go through some sort of development. And that can be true for a lot of the other villains, like Ingrid with Emma and with Zelina and Regina. But Pan is one of the ones that really strikes a nerve with every single one of them in their own unique way. Whether it's like his personal relationship with Hook, his personal relationship with Rumple, which, by the way, is still one of the craziest plot twists to ever happen in TV. I feel like, sorry, sue me. I remember when I was off topic, kind of, when I was first watching that scene with my mom. She went to the bathroom for like 2 seconds. She comes back, she's like, did I miss anything? I'm like, yeah, Pan is Rumple's father. She was gone just for that reveal. She was like, what? I was like, yeah, rewind. Just wait. She like missed only that reveal and that was it. She was like, what could I possibly miss in 4 minutes? That. Which was just insane. But anyways, I think, oh my God, one of my other favorite episodes of the entire show, Lost Girl, which I'm probably using a monologue for my senior showcase. But like Pan and the Lost Boys, and like bringing up the fact that Emma has still not gotten over the fact that she was an orphan or is an orphan. Like Pan is just, it sets up for this really amazing character development for every single character involved. And Pan is so entertaining about it. All of his games are just very fun to watch and very enticing, but also like, oh my God, I hate this guy. Robbie K is phenomenal. Like, season 3 is so great. And I feel like it also, putting them all on this island and forcing them all to work together against this enemy who is so brilliantly trying to tear them apart was just exactly what the show needed at this point. And it really, really helps to foster all of the relationships that then are able to grow. Like, they needed this kind of challenge to be able to continue the show at all. Like, all of the characters to be able to ever work as a team needed something of this level. And then season 3B is also brilliant. Rebecca Mader is just, like, so much fun. For as much as I love Zelina. I love that she has a non-linear character arc. I love that she, because she was so wicked for so long that it's hard to just immediately overnight make the right decisions. It gets a little old. A few seasons in, you're like, oh my God, Zelina's betraying them again. But Rebecca Mader is so much fun to watch that I don't care. Or like, hell, season 4A, I think, when Zelina comes back and we all thought she was dead, she's like, actually, I'm Marion. It's stupid. It's so stupid, but it's so good. Like, why is she still alive? I don't know. Shouldn't she not have any power because her pendant is off? They ignore that after season 3. None of it makes sense. It gets old after a while. But oh my God, is Rebecca Mader fantastic? And oh my God, do I love Zelina? And oh my God, season 3B is also, holy shit, how could I forget, Emma's New York arc, where Emma is, oh my God, I'm about to sidetrack from the ranked list and go on a rant about Emma Swan. Because Emma, in season 3, finally getting the life that she wants and then having to sacrifice it. Okay, Emma Swan's, sorry. We're already, I'm getting comfortable again. I'm getting even more comfortable. I'm sitting in this weird ass way that you can't even see on camera. Like, we are getting into the shit. God, I love this show. So, I'm almost a half hour into this. I've only gone through 1 season. Some of these are quicker than others. Season 3, I just have a lot to say about because I think it's so brilliant. So, but no, okay, Emma Swan as a whole. Emma Swan, and this is actually going to lead me into a discussion about the Dark Swan character arc and season 5, but we're not there yet. It is not the second best season of the show, I'll tell you that much. Emma has what I think is one of the most heartbreaking character arcs I've ever seen. Emma is forced to go through unspeakable, ridiculous things. I mean, just to name a few, she was in a manipulative relationship when she was a minor. She was 17 when she got pregnant with Henry, and Neil was a couple hundred, but even then in like Earth, I don't know, our world years, whatever, he was way older than 18, I'll tell you that. He was definitely in his 20s. Emma was manipulated. She was pregnant, had to have this baby in jail for a crime that she did not commit. Grew up without parents, thinking that she was not worth love. And then finds the kid that she gave up 10 years later, learns that magic is real, that her parents gave her up to save an entire kingdom, and then that she is destined to give everyone else happiness that she has never even been able to find for herself. And God, that one scene in season 1 breaks my heart where she's just sobbing and she's like, I don't want this. And we have so many amazing scenes of Emma understanding what it means to be a chosen one, which I feel like is something that chosen one media doesn't do often, which is understanding how fucking shitty it is. Because, like, she has a scene later on that she's like, I never get a day off. That's my price. Like, she is destined to save everyone. And that means that she constantly has to push her own feelings aside. She has to work with Mary, Margaret, and David, even though she hasn't forgiven them yet. She has to push away all of her anger, all of her negative emotions. Hell, in season 4, they literally tell her that she can't feel any negative emotions because she's gonna go dark. And this poor girl has so many things that she's been pushing down her entire life. And I mean, hell, in season 3, like, she has quote unquote forgiven. She has forgiven Mary, Margaret, and David because she understands. But deep down, she still realizes that she was raised without parents, and that's because they thought the kingdom was more important than she was. And we see that in season 3. And, she is basically understanding that she believes that her fate is just to be unhappy at the expense of everyone else. And she's willing to do that because she's amazing. But that means that she has to constantly ignore every negative emotion that she feels because there is no time to explore it. There is no time to heal from it. And there is no time to allow herself to feel it because there's the next villain she has to face. And this is a life she didn't choose and she doesn't want. And then, she does eventually. And that's why I love the Wish realm in season 6 when Emma realizes what her life would be like if she wasn't the savior. But season 3 breaks my damn heart because all she wants is a calm life where all she wants is happiness and all she wants is a home. And she thought she got that when she was cursed to believe that her life in New York was real. And then she has to give it up to save everyone again. And I'm going to hold off on talking about Dark Swan for now. But all I'm saying is that very brilliantly leads into a villain arc for Emma. I think Dark Swan is a brilliant writing choice, but we'll get to that later. Okay. Second best season of the show. Season 1. I think season 3 is just that good that I can't put it above season 1, but there is a special type of magic about season 1. And it's kind of what I was talking about earlier. The show was written with season 1 in mind. Everything else, they figured it out and it worked, but season 1 had a very specific vibe and a very specific thing it was trying to do when we were still under the curse. And God, is it brilliant. Season 1 is one of the best seasons of television I've ever seen. I cannot say that about most seasons of Once Upon a Time. Do I love them? Yes. Are they objectively great? That's a story for another time. But, oh my God, sorry, real quick. Season 3 Captain Swan is so peak. Will they, won't they, fucking enemies to lovers, love triangle bullshit. Hook pining, Emma not being ready until she realizes that she's in love with him during the finale, and I can't. Anyway, sorry. So season 1, I caught Hook in the corner of my eye, and it just reminded me. If it's not clear, I'm a Killian Jones stan, as most of us are / were. And let's think about my taste in men real quick. My top 3 fictional men of all time: Tony Stark, Killian Jones, Eugene Fitzherbert, aka Flynn Rider. Is there not a fucking common thread? And you know who started it? This guy right here. Audio listeners, I'm pointing at my blanket. He is the blueprint. He's the reason I am the way I am. Moving on. Season 1. Great writing. No, but for real, season 1, I love the parallels between the curse and what's happening in Storybrooke. All of it is so brilliant. The season 1 finale is just so special. And season 1 really just sets up for the whole thesis of the show, which is I think what Snow says in season 1, which is that believing in even the possibility of a happy ending is a very powerful thing. Like, that is kind of what the entire show is about. Now, my opinions on season 1 have changed a bit. Not me thinking it's any worse. Just, there are things in season 1 that didn't bother me as a kid that bother me so much now. This is one of the things I really wanted to talk about. For example, Emma had no right to Henry. Can we talk about, like, I know this is not a hot take. Emma had zero right to Henry in the beginning of this damn show. She shows up, closed adoption, has shown no interest in Henry in 10 years, and very quick, and which is very in character for Emma, because she realizes, I mean, it's in her nature, literally in her nature to save people, and she realizes that not only may this kid be in a bad situation, but that might be her fault, and the whole point was to give him a better life than what he might have had with her. But very quickly, she's like, no, lady, this is my son. No, he's not. Not according to the law, he's not. Not according to anyone else. What? Why were we so okay with this? Why was I so okay with Emma showing up and being like, yeah, that's my son? And I know the answer. The answer is because we saw what went on in the Enchanted Forest. If Once Upon a Time did not have the added context of what happened pre-curse, a lot of that shit would have gone differently. Emma, hey, I want my son back. Too bad. The police say no. And that would be more realistic if there was more than one police officer in this damn town. There was only one. Sheriff Graham. Oh, we need a second one? We need a deputy? How about the woman who just moved to town a few minutes ago and has no training in the law, in the police force, in anything? Let's make it her. Why? Because she's cool and she knows how to find people and she knows how to use computers. That's fine, I guess. So, number one, Emma thinking she had any right to Henry. I mean, obviously once she saw that, like, Regina was legitimately what she believed to be a shitty person, I think she had more of a reason. But right off the bat, she was like, oh, this woman's kind of a hard ass. You're mine now. No. Next. David and Mary Margaret? He's married! Oh my god. Like, obviously I knew that cheating was wrong when I first watched this show. But now that I'm, like, an adult watching it again, I'm watching season 1 literally screaming at my TV screen, like, get away from him! Like, obviously, him being in a coma and waking up and not remembering the marriage does make that harder, I will admit. Mary Margaret, I don't care how in love you are with that man. Back away slowly. Get away. Get your hands off of him. What? And again, like, I understand that with the added context of knowing that these two are soulmates, that they are true love, and that they are destined to be together, sure, whatever. But if you didn't know that, you know what? Regina spray painting whore on her car, I'm not saying I agree with it, but I'm not saying I disagree with it. What else? This is crazy. But anyway, okay. There's gonna be more and I'm gonna think of it. But, yeah. Season 1, oh, you know what? Another thing that has kind of changed since I've rewatched the first season. I think I used to be very annoyed with Henry, and I feel like a lot of us went through that phase where we were like, oh, Henry's annoying. Rewatching as an adult, I realized what I talked about earlier, which is that I was Henry. And I was that kid who was understanding the world through fiction and through media and feeling crazy and alone and just searching for anything that will give me any sense of belonging. Like, that was me. And also, I do think it's really interesting, rewatch season 1 through the lens that Henry is autistic and that fairy tales are his special interest, and get back to me. Because not only do I think it makes it add another layer to the show that makes it very interesting, I think it makes Henry a lot more, I mean, maybe it's just me, like, relating to him as a character because I'm also neurodivergent, but I like Henry more as a character when watching it through that lens. Yeah, what else? I don't know. Season 1, enemies to hopefully lovers, Swan Queen is very peak. Yeah, okay. Real quick. The whole, like, ship war that happened between the Captain Swan fans and the Swan Queen fans, why can't we like both? I'll offer you another solution. Polyamory. Is that the one? Wait. I get polyamory and polygamy confused. Which one do you have a lot of wives? Not that one. The one... I think I'm trying to say polyamory. Why don't they all just date each other? Great. Yeah, I do really love Swan Queen. I do ship Swan Queen. Captain Swan is one of my biggest ships in all of fiction. I think probably my biggest canon ship ever in fiction. But I do really love Swan Queen as well. And I didn't see it as queer baiting as a kid. In fact, I don't even know if I knew what gay people were. I sure as hell didn't know that I was gay. And part of my bi awakening was Regina Mills. But I don't think I caught on to the queer undertones until I got a bit older as well. And then I was like, holy shit. Yeah, you are two mothers to the same son because you're married. Like, this is ridiculous. Yeah, season 1 Swan Queen is really great. Do y'all want to hear my theory? I'm never getting through this damn ranking. 40 minutes in, and I'm 2 seasons out of 7. So, y'all want to hear my Swan Queen theory? And also, real quick, for those of you who are not aware, there was a ton of drama in the... I wouldn't even call it drama. That kind of minimizes it. There was a whole situation in the Once Upon a Time fandom that I actually wasn't super aware of at the time, where Swan Queen shippers got really intense and made the actors very uncomfortable and caused a lot of tension on set. And me talking about Swan Queen now, I don't at all want to add to that. I absolutely would never try to force anything onto the actors. This is purely me shipping fictional characters for fun and not at all trying to force anything onto anyone. I just want to make that very clear. With that said, do you want to hear my theory about how Emma and Regina slept together in season 1? Okay. I don't actually think this happened. But imagine this, right? It's the pilot of Once Upon a Time. Setting the scene. Emma shows up to drop off Henry. Regina invites her inside for a glass of apple cider, and Emma says, "You got anything stronger?" And they talk. And then Emma says something about, like, needing to leave, and then it cuts to Emma, I think she's already out the door. Or they're, like, talking in the hallway. In between that, I think they had sex. And let me explain. So I think what happened is they had a few more drinks than what we're seeing on screen. And maybe Emma did say, "I need to leave," but then she doesn't. And again, this is not actually true, but I choose to think it's fun, and someone please make it a fan fiction, and I will read it very quickly. I think they had a few more drinks than we saw, and I think they slept together. And then Regina, desperate for attachment, very lonely Mills, immediately is like, "Oh my God, this is so wonderful. You can move in and we can raise Henry together." And Emma, afraid of commitment Swan, goes, "I'm sorry, what? You know, maybe in hindsight this was a bad idea, sleeping with the adoptive mother of my son, but I was just here for a good time, lady. I was just here for one night. Hell, honestly, season 1 Emma, maybe she just needed a place to sleep. I wouldn't put it past her. Love her to death." And Regina resents that a lot. Regina feels led on. Regina feels like for a moment she had a glimpse of what having a family could be like. And that is why Regina is so pissed at Emma through all of season 1. Not because she's trying to get in between her and her son, because Regina offered her the opportunity to be with her son, and Emma didn't take it. Regina offered her the opportunity to stay in Storybrooke, and Emma said no, but then moved in with Mary Margaret, who obviously Regina knows is her mother, so she knows that there's nothing going on there. But still, moving in with someone else instead of Regina. I think that could have added a lot of fuel to the fire, and I like to believe that that is what happened. Thank you very much. Moving on to my 3rd favorite season. This episode is a mess, and I need you all to understand that it's because I have 10 years worth of thoughts and feelings about this show. I fear there might need to be a part 2. Or this might just be an extra long bonus episode. And by bonus, I mean the 2nd ever episode that has come out. Anyways, moving on. What the hell is my ranking? Did I write it down anywhere? What is the 3rd? Oh, I know. She says, raising her hand as if this isn't her own podcast. Third favorite season of the show is season 4. I love, and again, maybe it's nostalgia. Maybe it's because this was the first season of the show I watched on TV. Season 4 is so good. Now, I do think that season 4A, which was Frozen, is better than season 4B, which was Queens of Darkness, Cruella, Ursula, Maleficent. I enjoy season 4B. It's a little bit of a mess. They're trying to do a lot of things at once, but I think they do a lot of things right, which I'll get to in a minute. Season 4A, I don't care if people think that Frozen was just a cash grab. I don't care if people think that the show was bad when they had to bring in Frozen. Adding in Frozen is one of the best things that show ever did. I will stand by it. Number 1, Elsa's relationship with Emma is so brilliant. And again, the show was really great at adding in characters that pushed our main characters in some way and really allowed for them to have some sort of really beautiful development that they might not have had if that other character wasn't there. Like I was saying with Pan earlier, with Elsa truly understood Emma in a way that no one else did. And I think that, like, at its core, at her core, Emma Swan's arc, it is a self-love journey. It is realizing that she is worthy of happiness and of acceptance and of love and of loving herself. And because of her relationship with Elsa, we get what is one of the most beautiful moments in the entire show, and I actually tear up a little bit every time I think about it. Season 4, I don't remember the episode, when Emma is about to give away her powers. This whole arc with Emma in season 4A is so good. Realizing that she might be afraid of her own potential. Again, so she hasn't had the time to worry about the fact that she has magic powers because she's had to learn how to use them to fight every bitch that's walked through Storybrooke. She hasn't had the time to sit down and go, oh my god, what does this actually mean? And what's really brilliant about Ingrid as the villain is that Ingrid is the villain that will sit down with Emma and force her to uncover all of these things. Ingrid is not the villain that wants to have a big battle. Ingrid is the villain that literally forces Emma to sit down and go, let's talk about this. And also pushes Emma's buttons in a very personal way because she did know Emma personally. But there's this moment where Emma's going to give away her powers, and because she's so afraid of what she could do and she's not accepting them as part of herself. And Elsa asks her to grab her hand and trust herself. And when Emma does that, the true love magic that we see throughout the show, that like rainbow beam, comes out of Emma's hands. Emma's self-love is true love. And that is something that is not talked about nearly enough. We see true love in a lot of forms in this show. We see it as parent and child, adoptive parent and child. We see it as a romantic thing. We see it as a romantic thing between two women, which is wonderful. We also see it as self-love, which is something that Emma has been trying to find for all of these seasons. So much of what she goes through comes from not believing that she's worthy of these good things, and from closing herself off, from putting these walls up, from putting her armor on, because she is so afraid of being hurt again, because every time she is hurt, it just takes away from any sort of self-worth that she had. She doesn't think she was worthy of being kept by her parents. She doesn't think she was worthy of Neil staying with her. She doesn't think she was worthy of so much of this. And then she also has the imposter syndrome of realizing that chosen one means prophesized, meaning how much of her own decisions are actually her own. And we haven't even learned about the author yet that has written some of these decisions. We haven't even learned yet in this half of the season about the fact that her parents determined her destiny. But we'll get to that in a second. The fact that she has been struggling so much to open herself up to the idea that she is worthy of all of these things, and that season 4 is really that turning moment where she accepts herself and embraces who she is, and that is true love, is so good. And that wouldn't have happened without Elsa helping her. And that wouldn't have happened without the villain that she was currently having to fight being someone who pushed her towards that self-discovery, as opposed to being one of the villains that she has to distract herself from that discovery to be able to defeat. Which is one of the reasons why I think Ingrid was a really great choice. I used to not like Ingrid as a character, the Snow Queen. She's really fascinating. The type of villain that sits down and goes, no, I want to talk about you. And it genuinely does come from a place of like, I want you to embrace who you are, and I want you to accept yourself, and I want you to love me. I want you to love me. What a crazy thing for a villain to say. And it's so good. And low-key, them at the end defeating her by making her realize that she had the love she was searching for all along, and then she kills herself to be with her deceased family. So good. It's not only so good, but it is also the past few villains we have killed. We killed Cora. We killed Pan. We killed Zelina, quote unquote. What a great twist. What a great way to break kind of the pattern that they might have been falling into. Especially because this show is all about the fact that nobody is beyond redemption. And it was such an interesting thing for both Emma and Elsa to deal with as well. And the Spell of Shattered Sight. What a fun fucking episode. It has one of my favorite quotes in the whole series, which you only hear in the background. Snow and Charming are fighting. That audio went viral recently, by the way. That was like, Prince Charming. And they're like fighting through the prison bars. But in the background of one of those scenes where they're both under the curse and like forced to see the bad things in each other or whatever, Snow says something about their son. And David goes like, oh, it might not even be mine. Who knows? Could be whales. And then Snow goes, well, he's a doctor. At least he knows where everything is. What? What a crazy thing for them to say. And again, like, rewatch that episode. I don't remember which one it's in. If it's in the first... Oh, wait, was Shattered Sight a two-parter? No, it was just a one-part, I think. So, season 4, episode 12? No, episode 11. Yeah. Season 4, episode 11. Final answer. I'm gonna check that later. And it's like in the background of like after Kristoff says some shit. Like it's not even meant to be heard. It might have been improvised, but God, it's funny. Okay, moving on. Season 4B, Queens of Darkness is a bit of a mess. I didn't love that they changed Maleficent's costume to look more like Angelina Jolie's, simply because we had already seen her in canon, and it doesn't make any sense why she would change it. I love all of the Queens of Darkness individually. Love this Maleficent. God, I love this Cruella de Vil, and I want to cosplay this version specifically. And I love this version of Ursula. Like, all three of them are great. All three of them at once was kind of a lot. And then also we get one of the most annoying characters in the entire series, which is Isaac. God, I hate Isaac. Very interesting. I love the plot with the author. I love the idea that this specific version of all of these stories is so fucked because Isaac was fucking it up, that he's been manipulating it and twisting it the whole time. The idea of fate and like a higher power versus free will is really interesting, especially when we're looking at fairy tale characters out of context. People who are classified as heroes and villains and people who have been forced to follow the same story their entire lives. Like, that's super interesting. It's just a lot to tackle in one season, and I think it started to get a little... what my friend Harry and I like to refer to as gobbledygloop. I don't even know how to explain gobbledygloop. It's kind of just like when they're throwing a whole bunch of shit in there, and it just is all wild and wacky, and it's just gobbledygloop. You know? That's kind of the Queens of Darkness arc. But, back to Emma Swan. The sentence I say most often in my life. Honestly, pretty accurate. If anyone is due for a villain arc, it is her. I think the Dark Swan story arc, and I know that's in season 5, but I'm getting there. I think the Dark Swan story arc is brilliant. I think it is one of the smartest things this show ever did. Do I think that they did it just because they needed something big to keep people engaged? Sure. I don't think they meant for it to be a really smart character decision, but it ended up being one. They have been leading up to it through all of season 4B. They've, like I said earlier, Emma has been forced to hide all of her negative emotions at the expense of others for her entire arc, honestly, for her entire life. That's just how she's protected herself. That's how she's survived. And then it had to become how she is able to focus on saving everyone else. But in season 4A, like I just talked about, she has now opened herself up to this idea and this possibility that maybe she doesn't have to do that anymore. Maybe she's really in a place where she's safe and she's accepted and she's with people who she loves and trusts, and maybe she has finally found a home, and all of these, and she's embraced her powers and she's embraced who she truly is, not just having powers but being part of this ridiculous crazy world that she's been like thrown into. And then suddenly that all starts to crumble. Everyone is lying to her. And Emma has always had a thing about honesty and lying. She has that whole superpower bullshit that she has convinced herself that she has. Obviously, Emma doesn't really... Hold on, real quick. Obviously, Emma doesn't really have a superpower. This is just how she's protected herself. She's convinced herself, because so many people have lied to her and tricked her and used her, she's convinced herself that she's able to detect it now, and that she has a special ability to never get hurt like that again. And notice how her superpower doesn't... I think... Who is it? Is it Emma or... Not Emma. It's either Regina or Snow who calls her out on it. But they're like... Someone says to her, like, have you ever noticed that your superpower tends to not work when you have an emotional stake in the situation? It's not real! It starts to fade away when Emma starts to open herself up to people and be vulnerable again. And then when she's closing them off, she convinces herself that she's able to detect when they're lying. Sometimes it works. Sometimes she is just good at telling when someone's lying. She's an intelligent person. But it's not a superpower. But anyways, it has always been very important to her to be truthful and honest. And especially because she's been hurt by people lying so many times. Suddenly, her parents are keeping a huge secret from her. Hook is lying to her, which they end up being fine. But that's kind of adding to this overwhelming feeling of like, hold on, am I actually not safe in the place I thought I might finally be safe? She went through this whole arc in season 3 of finally finding her home, and it's with her family. And now she's gotten the self-acceptance part of it, and now suddenly she's like, wait a minute. What if I was wrong? What if this is not... It's a trauma response. A very real and valid trauma response. But then she learns the secret that Snow and Charming were hiding, which is what I was just talking about earlier, which is that they took all of the potential for darkness out of Emma and put it into, what's her name? Lilith. And Emma, who has been so horrified by the idea that so much of her life has been chosen for her, and that she is forced to be a pawn in this game, that is just confirmed. And not only was it done to her, it was done to her by her own parents. And now we learned that was Isaac. I wish we got a little bit more of a scene where Snow and Charming realized that it was Isaac, because they have kind of... they have no reason to believe it wasn't their own free will. Why wouldn't they think they were making these choices? And so they've justified it to themselves over and over. But obviously we know that they were manipulated into doing that. Emma doesn't. And even then, this makes her rethink her entire identity again. And throughout all of that, she learns that the Dark One's plan is to turn her dark. So she cannot, dark magic is fueled by anger and hatred and any negative emotion. So she's being told, hey, I know you're going through all of these really intense emotions right now. Don't feel them. You better not. And more than anything, don't act on them. Don't do anything selfish. Don't do anything for your own gain. Don't do anything that could even possibly be portrayed as dark, because then other people will win. Meanwhile, everyone else in this goddamn show has been able to do something dark and quote unquote dark, do something wrong, do something selfish, and be able to move on and still be considered a good person. Snow White murdered someone, and we're all fine with it, for God's sake. And Regina and Rumble have done countless awful things and yet have been able to find redemption, and yet Emma cannot do one negative or dark thing without, the fear that she's going to spiral into some horrible being and hurt a million people. And so she is already perfectly prompted for this entire half of the season for what I think is a perfect, well-deserved villain arc. And that takes me into there's a transition into what I think is what's next, what's right below that in my ranking, which is season 5. Emma as the Dark One is so brilliant. I don't think she ever would have fully allowed herself to experience any of those negative emotions if it weren't for the darkness. Now, the darkness does not turn you evil. What the darkness... Okay, recap for anyone who hasn't seen it in a while. At the end of season... Jesus. At the end of season 4, Emma saves Regina / saves the whole town. If you know, you know. With the Dark One dagger. Wait, hold on. I have the Dark One dagger right here. With the Dark One dagger. And she puts it in the air and absorbs all of the Dark One magic into herself and is now the new Dark One, and the Dark One dagger reads Emma Swan. What the dark magic does, it does not turn you evil. It allows you to act on your deepest desires. It is manipulative, but it does not immediately turn someone evil. It helps persuade you into acting on what you might not normally act on. It takes away all of that, not inhibitions. That's the wrong word. I don't know, resistance, I guess. And notice, first of all, when Emma was the Dark One, she didn't do anything that bad. The thing with Violet, she ripped out Violet's heart and told her to dump Henry, or to reject Henry. That's not cool. When Rumble was the Dark One, he was just killing people for fun. So Emma didn't kill anyone. Emma, she didn't even cast the damn dark curse that was Hook. She just added him. The worst thing she did, other than the Violet thing, was turn Hook into a Dark One, which saved his life, and put a memory spell on the curse that she didn't even cast. She didn't do anything that bad. So I think it was very justified. But also, I think, for example, when I first watched the show and Dark Swan is making all of those dream catchers and thinking about Neil, my first thought was, oh my god, can we move on from this guy already? Rewatching it, Emma never had time to grieve. She never allowed herself to grieve because, again, it was the next damn villain after the other, and she never had time to properly grieve Neil. She moved on, obviously, with Hook, but to never process that grief. Being the Dark One, being the villain that she would normally have to destroy, gave her the time to actually do that. Number one. And it also allowed her to make what would be considered selfish decisions without that guilt. Something else I don't think she ever would have done. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that Dark Swan is the end of Emma's arc, but number one, I think it was very justified. If anyone deserved a villain arc, it was her. And number two, I think it, similar to everything else I've been talking about with all of these great writing decisions, I think it allowed for some necessary development for Emma. I don't think she ever would have been able to take the time to heal from what she had gone through in the past and allowed herself to finally act on some of her, maybe more selfish desires. And by the way, something that Emma considered selfish, taking time for herself, focusing on her own emotions, all of the things that she did when she was the Dark One. I think it was very necessary, and I don't think it came out of nowhere like everyone said. And not only was her being the Dark One coming out of a place of wanting to protect people, she still continued to do that despite the darkness, and was willing to sacrifice her happy ending so that everyone could be saved from that same darkness, all while she was still under the influence of it. And if that is anything, it's just a testament to her character, and I think helped prove it to herself, too, that even with that darkness that Snow and Charming fought so hard to get rid of, she is a hero because of who she is deep down. Not because of the savior magic, not because of being a product of true love, not because of the potential for darkness being ripped from her, even while under the influence of the darkness that has affected and corrupted countless souls before her, she still made the heroic decision. Which I think was such a big deal to her understanding that she's not just a puppet in this game. She is a hero because she is Emma Swan. With that said, Season 5 the reason it's below the other seasons, it starts to get really fucky. And what I mean by that is Season 5, I feel is kind of the peak of when we get to, we need a solution. Oh, here's this magical item that I've had this whole time that is perfect for this very predicament. God, I that's always been the whole show, but I feel Season 5 is where that really starts to get bad. Like, you know? And I also feel like, okay, Hook becoming a Dark One, great for the angst. Number one, I don't think they had that planned. I think that it got to the point where they had to reveal what Emma was trying to hide, and they went, shit, we gotta come up with something. Let's make Hook a Dark One. What the hell? Because this is one of the only reasons this season is somewhat low on my ranking. You're trying to tell me that Hook has been a Dark One the whole time, and bro just doesn't know. We have made it canon. I mean, obviously the show never listens to its own rules for magic. Because, God forbid... Oh, speaking of, sorry, real quick, sidetrack, off topic. I finally watched Once Upon a Time in Wonderland this year. I had never seen it. It wasn't available anywhere when I was first watching the show, and you had to buy it on iTunes, which I was like 12. I didn't have the money to do that. And then I heard it was bad, so I never watched it. I really enjoyed it. It was really fun. It was nonsense, even more so than the original series. Also, the costume design was not on par with the series. But that show broke so many rules. I don't remember who it was, but didn't we fully bring someone back from the dead? Isn't that like the only rule of magic y'all have ever stuck to? I can't go into that right now. Actually, I need a water break because I'm going to start yelling. But anyways, we've made it canon in the show before that you can feel magic. You can feel when your magic is back, when it is gone, when it is drained into a ribbon. I don't know. But for some reason, Hook, when he gets back to Storybrooke, just because he has a memory spell and doesn't know he's the Dark One, doesn't feel shit. And then suddenly he gets all his memories back. It is the quickest turnaround in a character ever. Hook is like, Emma, love of my life, I'll jump off a building because I know that you'll save me and I love you so much. You could never do any wrong. Lauren sees a Dark One. I hate you and I'm gonna kill your family. And also, suddenly he realizes that he has magic. Something he's never had before, by the way. And then he poofs out of the room. Why do you know how to do that? And why couldn't you have been doing it this whole time? And why did you not feel that some shit was different? Like, that is the most bullshit plot twist, unplanned for. Like, it ended up making some good story. You cannot convince me they had that planned ahead of time. You cannot. I know damn well they didn't. I know damn well it was week of, and they went, shit, we gotta do something. But anyways, and then season 5B is the Underworld. Lots of really great stuff in that season. It just wasn't as great as some of the other seasons. It was a little slow. There were some things that were a little forced. I feel like Hades and Zelina, while they ended up being really cute, it was a little forced. Some forced redemption for some characters I don't think necessarily needed it. Again, I am a full belief of the show's moral of like, nobody is beyond redemption, nobody is beyond rehabilitation. I didn't need a core redemption arc. I didn't, like, you know, I don't know. There was some really interesting stuff down there. I'm a big fan of, like, the unfinished business type stuff. I'm a big fan of Regina going down to help people. Oh, this is another thing. I get so sick of Rumple and Belle in season 5B. Rumple and Belle should have been over when Belle sent him over the town line in season 4. They do such a disservice to her character. You don't really see much of them in season 5A you see them, but at that point, season 5A, Rumple is no longer tethered to the darkness. So I don't blame Belle for being like, all right, you know what, maybe we can finally do this. The darkness is the thing that was stopping us before. He's no longer the Dark One, let's fucking try again. That's fine. But then, Rumple does the one thing that I will never forgive him for, and that is because it messes with my Pookie, Killian Jones. And I know that the darkness is a metaphor for addiction, and I understand that this is a relapse. But, without being under the influence of the Dark One dagger, without being under the influence of the dark magic. In fact, his heart is pure now. We see it be white, which makes no damn sense. Because no one else's heart is white. Even the fucking savior, it's red. But whatever. That's fine. God forbid there's any consistency. Anyways. He decides to take back the power at the expense of Emma having to kill Hook. And he becomes the Dark One again. It is then that Belle should have been done. And then they had to go and make her pregnant. And honestly, I'm on a rewatch right now, and I'm rewatching season 5B. They do a better job of having her be conflicted with this than I remember them doing. It's not just an immediate, like, oh, yay, Rumple. I can't do her accent. We're back, and we're having a child. Yay, I love you again. She is very distraught by this whole ordeal. But they really just forced them back together. And I don't like it. And also it gives us one of the other most annoying characters in this entire damn show, which is Gideon. No hate to the actor, but I hate him. Not the actor. I don't hate the actor. I hate the character. The character sucks. And I mean, I don't have a ton of other complaints about 5B other than the pacing is kind of weird. It's just not as good as some of the other ones. And like, there are a few times where I'm kind of like, all right, we're still down here. Let's get it going. You know, it's just a little slower pacing, and I don't love it quite as much. And season 5A is also messy, but I do really love it. And I am a big sucker for Captain Swan angst. Arthur is very interesting, actually. Arthur is another great depiction of how being a chosen one can suck. He was told a prophecy by Merlin that's, like, told him all of his self-worth. And yet, Merlin did it in riddles. And Merlin got stuck in a damn tree, and he can't figure out. He pulls the sword, and it's half. And he... like, his entire life has been around this moment. And Merlin told him a half-truth. And it drives him crazy. Reasonably so. Like, another very interesting take on the chosen one trope that I really enjoy. All right, moving on. There's definitely more I have to say about season 5, but I can't think of it right now. So we're gonna move on. How many seasons are left? 3. I can do this. This is a long ass episode. I haven't even gotten to God, there's more. I have a whole rant about Emma. Okay. No, Katie, don't. You're gonna get sidetracked. Just move on. Next best season of the show. So we have 3 left. This is my bottom 3. Next is season 6. I honestly don't have a ton to say about season 6 either. Good parts about season 6. I think what they did with Jekyll and Hyde was really cool. The only reason this season is above season 2 is because what they do with Regina and the whole self-love arc for her and splitting herself in half, but then she shows that half of herself mercy and hugs herself and splits the light and the darkness between herself for good and gives that other version of herself happiness is so beautiful. Is it a little on the nose? Sure. It's beautiful and it's very well done. Now, Zelena going to side with the evil queen. Oh my god, we get it, girl. Pick a side. But I really do love that arc. Again, I just think it's messy. What the hell is season 6B, Gideon and the Black Fairy next. I don't care about either of them. And the Black Fairy being there, like, I get them building up this whole final battle thing, and that's fine. But the Black Fairy being there, like, they fully started season 1 thinking that, like, trying to make us believe that Rumple made the curse. And then they were like, actually, we lied. And it's just the Black Fairy, who, of course, is Rumple's mom. It's just, like, it's just so, like, of course that's what they would do. You know, it's just, they're making these cheesy-ass decisions, which are fun and nonsense, and they've been making them the whole series, and that's fine. It's just, like, season 6 gets a little out of hand, even for my taste. And I don't love the Black Fairy as a villain. I think she's boring. I hate Gideon. Season 6A, I think the idea, because that's also Aladdin, who, perfect casting for Aladdin and Jasmine, they're wonderful. Jafar is cool, but we already had Jafar in Once Upon a Time in Wonderland. Are we to believe this is the same character? Because it doesn't make any sense. In fact, doesn't he lose his staff in that? Why does he have it again? We just are completely... Like, that's the other thing about season 6. We're just throwing canon out the window, I guess. If Once Upon a Time in Wonderland was meant to be canon. Also, what was Jafar doing in Wonderland? This show is ridiculous. Why do I care so much? But the whole idea of, like, Aladdin being a savior and there being multiple saviors is fine and is, like, I don't mind it. It's not my favorite arc in the world. I do love... it's season 6 where Emma, like, goes to therapy and, like, we have that whole arc of, like, deciding to take the next step to move in with Hook and healing from everything that happened in season 5, and that stuff is really great. I don't mind Aladdin being a savior, and I don't mind savior being a thing for other people. I just feel like it being Aladdin was really random. Like, nothing against Aladdin as a character, but I feel like we've met a lot of other characters that also very easily could have been saviors, and there's nothing really setting Aladdin apart from those other characters in that way. There were a lot of people who were saving people. Aladdin being another savior and then, like, oh my god, Jennifer Morrison, the incredible actress that you are, what the hell was that handshake when you got those visions? Like, season 6 is just very silly. Also, Land of Untold Stories is not my favorite. Like, there's just a lot of stuff that happens that, like, is fine, but it's not my favorite thing. The only other thing putting season 6 above season 2 is the musical episode! God, I love the musical episode. I know every word. One day I will produce a concert in the city where we sing the songs from the musical episode. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen, and I will be playing Emma. Thank you very much. But also maybe Zelina, because I want to. But what a perfect show to do a musical episode. Is the musical episode objectively very good? I think it's good. I don't think it's amazing. But I love it more than anything. And you will know, like, if you were not in the fandom of the time of this happening, every year, San Diego Comic-Con, Yvette Nicole Brown would stand up and moderate the panel and say, when is our musical episode? And everyone would cheer and beg for it, and they would say, maybe one day. And they finally did it. Once was really great about doing things not purely as fan service, but doing things in response to what they're getting from the fans. It very much did feel like kind of a conversation with the fan base at the time, which is something that I feel like is really special. And they knew that we wanted it, and they did it in the cheesiest, most Once Upon a Time way possible, and it is so stupid and ridiculous and perfect. And I love it. And also, the musical episode being the Captain Swan wedding, are you kidding me? How perfect. And the season 6 finale is also really solid. It's actually pretty far up there in one of my favorite season finales. That's the curse where Emma's, like, in an insane asylum or, like, a mental hospital. I don't know, but I guess it's a mental hospital. And, like, Henry has to teach her to believe again, and she, like, burns the storybook. It's kind of fire. Pun intended, because she burns it. But yeah, season 6 it's just kind of a mess, and we're just kind of doing whatever the hell we want. And it's just not all my favorite choices, and it's just not a lot of my favorite characters, like new characters that come in. It's okay. Honestly, we have 2 seasons left. Alright, I think next up is season 2. Season 2, I'm actually not going to talk about that much, mainly because I realize how long this is getting. Love season 2, a lot of really wonderful character stuff. That's when we meet Hook. Love him to death. I haven't talked about Hook that much. I only have positive things to say about him. That's probably why. I love him so much, and he has set my standards so ridiculously high. A lot of really wonderful character stuff, specifically between Emma and Snow. Emma getting to go to the Enchanted Forest and kind of understand what life was like and what Snow was giving up, and understand magic in that way was wonderful. That half of the season is really great. I don't even remember if it was exactly a half. All of the Korra stuff, once we get back to Storybrooke, it's not bad by any means. It just feels like it has a little bit less direction. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, because, you know, it's the first season post-Curse. post the main curse. And we're kind of like, where do we go from here? Which is such a valid response to, you know, this show. It is very open-ended after the season 1 ends. But I like season 2. It moves very slowly. I don't like Cora as a character. Not, like, I know you're not supposed to like her as a person, but, like, I just don't love her as a character. The actress does a fantastic job. I just don't... She's one of my least favorite characters in the whole show. And her being the main villain of the entire season, I'm kind of like, all right, let's wrap it up. Especially when I'm rewatching and I know I'm about to get to season 3. Oh my god, that's also all the Greg and Tamara stuff. I hate them! I hate Greg, I hate Tamara, they both suck. And Neil's back, and Neil's doing shit, and I just... so many characters I don't like are in that season, and it just feels less put together than some of the other seasons do, and it's just not my favorite to rewatch. So that's why it's there. And then, briefly, I'm going to talk about season 7, and then I'm going to say my piece on Emma Swan, and then I'm going to stop it. I'm so sorry this is so long, but if you're still watching, I appreciate you. So, season 7, I actually really enjoy. The only reason it's so low is, you know, Emma's not in it as much, and it's just not the same cast as the original. And I'm just purely very attached to the original cast. I think they actually do a very good job with season 7. The second half is very gobbledygook. It's a little all over the place. The second half is a little like, okay, we're doing a lot right now. And it gets into, like once we really start getting into, like, the cult stuff, I'm kind of like, all right, we lost the plot. Whatever the plot was to begin with. But, well, also, season 7 gives me Ronnie. God! Okay, my biggest fictional character woman that I'm in love with is Regina Mills. When they gave me Regina Mills with a short curly hair and a leather jacket, and she is a bartender, I don't think you understand what that does to me. I need a minute. Okay, great. Season 7, part 1. There's the complaint that it's too similar to season 1. I think it's actually really beautiful that it's so similar to season 1. Because I feel like it kind of proves that these stories and these themes of hope and forgiveness and happy endings and family, that they're universal and that they're timeless. That it doesn't just apply to Emma and Henry, but it can reoccur and keep happening no matter where you are, no matter who you're with, and what characters we're following. I think that's really beautiful. And I actually also think that they did the multiverse in a really interesting way. There are many different versions of these fairy tale characters. That's so cool that they're all different storybooks. Why are they Doctor Strange portals? I don't know. Fair enough, I guess. Whatever y'all want to do. At this, like, it's at this point in the show where I'm just kind of like, yeah, fair enough. Like, you want to have Captain Hook and Captain Ahab from Moby Dick, the book, fighting over Maui's fishhook from Moana? You might as well. Like, oh my god, that was my other complaint about season 6. Where are these? Why is Beowulf here? From the book? The myth? Why is Nemo here? From 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea? What are we doing? Sorry. Moving on. Back to season 7. Again, season 7 is a bit of a mess. There's a lot going on. I think the finale is beautiful. I think the first half of season 7 is actually a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of really great new characters. I love Ivy. I love the new Cinderella. I love Tiana. I love Facilier. Hook being basically their equivalent of Flynn Rider means everything to me and more. It just simply is never going to hit the same. And again, we did kind of start getting a little all over the place. Also, can we talk about really fast? Rumple. Why does he have an ofrenda? That's what it's called, right? Where, you know, for Day of the Dead, a holiday that is not, like a holiday that is, I don't want to say, I believe it's specific to Mexico, I think. But I might be wrong, and if I am, I apologize. Rumple's not celebrating that shit. Why does he have an ofrenda for Belle? As in, like, with the orange flowers, like, as a reference to the movie Coco. What are we doing? Rumple is a white-ass man. Rumple is not from a country where the Day of the Dead is celebrated. Moving on. I probably would have more to say about season 7. You gotta watch it as a spinoff. If you watch it as a spinoff to the original series, it's actually a lot of fun. Also, the Captain Swan baby. I need everyone to, I'm sitting up. I need everyone to know this. When I was, I don't know, however old I was when season 5 was coming out, I created my first OC, which was a Once Upon a Time OC. And her name was Hope. And she was the child of, I just burped, of Emma and Hook. Guess what their fucking child's name was? Do you know your comfort character so well that you will guess the name of her baby 2 years prior? I don't think so. Anyways, real quick, I have something to say about Emma Swan. And then that's going to be it for today's episode. There's much more I could talk about with Once Upon a Time. That was, again, this is a very open-ended kind of initial episode, just kind of seeing where my flow of consciousness takes me. And then maybe I'll have a better idea of where to start next time I talk about Once. I think episode 3 is going to be Toy Story, by the way. Does anyone care? I don't know. I do. Are you curious about how Lightyear and Buzz Lightyear of Star Command can both coexist in the Toy Story universe? Well, I'm going to tell you how. I don't think anyone ever has asked me that. But, anyways, I have seen opinions floating around the internet that Emma Swan is a bad female character, is poor representation for women, and becomes less of a feminist character over the course of the series. I don't know if y'all heard that. The door to the hallway of my floor is the loudest thing in the world. I was trying to do a moment of silence for that opinion. Look, everyone's opinion on media is valid, and everyone is allowed to interpret media in their own way. I have never disagreed with something more in my entire life. Number one, I feel like a large amount of this criticism comes from the fact that Emma gets into a relationship with Hook. And that is a part of a much bigger conversation about the fact that, you know, especially in this, like, early 2000s wave of, like, girl boss feminism, that there is either an independent woman who doesn't need a man and therefore is strong and therefore is a feminist, or there is a woman in a relationship and therefore that relationship defines her and she is nothing outside of that relationship. A woman can be an incredibly strong woman, can be a feminist and also be in a relationship. Now, if she is defined by that relationship, for example, like with a female character, if she has no personality or goals or aspirations or character arcs outside of the relationship that she's in, obviously that's a problem. But being a feminist does not mean you are closed off to the idea of love. In fact, being a feminist means if love is something that you want in your life, realizing that you have enough value and strength to be able to pursue that and pursue a relationship that is good for you and someone who treats you well and supports you through all of your personal endeavors. The idea that Emma becomes less feminist when she gets into a relationship, I think is rooted in this kind of misogynistic belief that we have as a society that a woman inherently loses worth when she's in a relationship with a man. And again, I don't think being a strong, independent woman and a feminist and being in a relationship, I don't think those two things have to be exclusive. They absolutely can coexist. I also think that that is just fundamentally misunderstanding Emma's character. If the belief is that, that she became too emotional, too overly sensitive, she became less strong once she got into a relationship with Hook. And, you know, people are like, okay, well, her first scene ever is her bashing a guy's head into a steering wheel, and then later we see her crying all the time. Number one, she cries in season 1. Number 2, again, this is just part of a deeper conversation about how a lot of people assume that femininity equals weakness and masculinity equals strength. And Emma was, and also the idea that emotions are attributed to femininity in some way, and expressing your emotions is feminine and therefore is a weakness. Emma has always been an incredibly emotional person. She was just very good at hiding it because, as I said earlier, that's how she protected herself. That's how she kept herself safe from getting hurt any further, because when she was open and vulnerable, she became incredibly traumatized from how many people hurt her. So she's always been very emotional. She was just better at hiding it and more closed off to the idea that she ever could open herself up again and be vulnerable and be with someone that she trusts, because love is something that she wants. It doesn't have to be for any female character. And another, like, a great example of kind of what I'm talking about is Regina in season 4 has an amazing quote. Zelina looks at her and is like, oh, so Robin is your happy ending? Your happy ending is a man? And Regina says, my happy ending is finally feeling at place in the world. Robin is just part of that world. That's another, Once has amazing female representation. Regina and Emma being two of the strongest I can think of. But that's exactly what it is for Emma too, even though she doesn't explicitly say it. Her happy ending is finally feeling like she belongs somewhere and being happy and feeling safe and feeling like she's deserving of all of those things. Hook just helps her get there. And Hook is part of that world that she wants to create and part of that home that she has finally found for herself. And does she seem like, quote unquote, less of a badass throughout the series? Maybe. But maybe it's also because she's not feeling the need to hide behind this tough exterior that she's been presenting as a way of hiding who she truly is and all of her true emotions. I've seen that recently, and it just really, it grinds my gears. So I wanted to talk about it. And with that, I think I need to call it a night. I need to go to bed. I work in the morning. You all probably have shit to do. But if you want more of this, if you want more of me talking about Once Upon a Time, and you don't want to wait 2 months for it, I'm going to try to not make this as rare of an occasion. Let me know. Thank you so much for listening. Like I said, this show means the absolute world to me. There is a million more things I could discuss. And I'm very excited for you all to hear. I'm very excited to hear what you all have to think, and I'm very excited for you all to hear what I think. So, yeah, that is all for this episode, and I will see you next time.